Hi guys, thank you for your patience with waiting for this video on how to do the coloured beanie. I will try to go as slowly as I can through the different areas that might be a bit confusing, but I will also rush through some of the other things where you're just seeing me continue doing the same stitch over and over again. I have also rewritten the pattern to make sure that the stitches are correct. So the new pattern that I've sent you, please follow that one rather than the one that I gave you in class. Okay. So we're going to start the pattern with an adjustable loop or a magic ring. I've done a separate video which you can find on my YouTube channel. I'll link into the email that I send with this video. So do go and watch that if you want something a bit more detailed, because I'm just going to go through the adjustable loop pretty quickly here. So I'm holding the tail end, I'm going to loop it around, I'm going to hold that pretty tightly where it crosses over. I'm going to go under and over, pull through and twist around. I'm going to pull my fingers out and make sure that I pull that yarn tight. And now I'm going to secure my adjustable loop with a chain. Okay, so now we're going to go into row 1. We're going to chain 2. So because we've already secured our loop with a chain, that counts as chain 1. So we're just going to do one more chain. We're then going to do 8 half double crochets into our adjustable loop. So when we say into, we're going to go into the circle. So we can see a circle here. We're going to go put our hook into that circle, and we're going to make sure we're going over both of those pieces of yarn. So it's the tail yarn and the loop of the yarn. And then we're going to complete our half double crochet. So see what I did there, that I twisted that. We've got to make sure we don't do that. So let's just do that again so that I don't twist it. It's a bit hard because I'm trying to watch the video and do everything at the same time. So going into the loop, making sure I haven't twisted my work, so it should be nice and straight. And we're pulling through. I'm going to do 8 of those. Okay, so let's just check that I have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So remember, we count the number of stitches based on this little V here. And if you are following along with your pattern, you'll see the notes at the beginning say that the beginning chains do not count. So those 2 chains that we did at the beginning do not count as a stitch. We're just counting the stitches we actually did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now that we've got 8, we're going to pull our loop tight. So I'm going to hold on to my work, because if I just pull it without holding on to it, it's going to twist and potentially not end up the way that I want to. So I'm just going to hold on to that, and I especially hold on to it at the beginning here so that the stitch doesn't come undone, or we don't have problems with it becoming loose and all that kind of thing. So if I now pull that, and I'm going to pull it until it's as tight as I can get it. Okay, and then at the end of row 1, we're going to slip stitch to the first stitch. So how do we know which one this first stitch is? We're going to count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to go under the V. And then I'm just going to slip stitch, which is pulling through both. And we've now completed row 1. Row 2, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. From here, if you're quite new to crochet, you might want to use a stitch marker. So here's a stitch marker that I have. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my first stitch. So our pattern says 2 double crochet in each stitch around. So this is my first stitch here. I'm going to do 2 double crochet. So there's number 1. And after I do my first stitch, I'm going to put my stitch marker in the top of that stitch, so that I know when I come back, that's stitch number 1. I'm going to do another stitch into that same hole. So see how there's a nice big gap here? That's where I'm putting my stitch, because that's the one that I've been into. So there I've done 2 stitches into 1 stitch below. So I'm now going to continue doing that all the way around. So I'm just going to count the number of stitches I have now to see if I've got the right number. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And if I check my pattern, that's the number of stitches I should have. So now I just need to slip stitch into my first stitch, and I already know where my first stitch is because that's where my stitch marker is. Okay, we've now completed row 2. Right, we're now going to do row 3. So we're going to chain 1, and our first instruction is to do 1 single crochet. So we're going to do that here, and I'm going to mark my first stitch. It then tells us to do 2 single crochets into the next stitch. So 1, 2. Then if I continue with the pattern, it says repeat to the end, and it's got asterisks around the first single crochet and the 2 single crochet into the next stitch. That means that I repeat that whole sequence until I get to the end. So I'm going to do 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet. The pattern says that we should have 24 stitches, so let's have a look. Got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. So I can now slip stitch into my first stitch. We've now completed row 3. Okay, so we're now going to do row 4 of our pattern. We're going to chain 2. Then it's telling us to do 2 half double crochets and then 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. So if it's saying 2 half double crochets, we do 1, then 2, and then the 2 half double crochets in the next stitch means that you do both of those crochets, half double crochets, in 1 stitch. So I'm going to do the first half double crochet. I'm going to go into the next stitch to do the next half double crochet, and then I'm going to do 2 half double crochets into the next stitch. That gives us a pattern of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, which goes into 3 stitches. So 1 half double crochet into 1 stitch, 1 half double crochet into the next stitch, and 2 half double crochets into the 3rd stitch. We're then going to repeat that same pattern around. So 1 half double, 1 half double, 2 half double. And we're going to do that until we've got 32 stitches. Okay, so that's the end. I'm going to count my stitches now. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 31, 32. So I have the correct number of stitches in row 4. So I'm going to slip stitch into my first stitch here. And that is the end of row 4. So row 5, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And we are going to do 3 double crochet and then 2 double crochet in the next stitch. So like before, we're going to do 1, 2, 3 double crochet, and then the next stitch we're going to do 2 double crochet. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, 3 double crochet, and then 2 times double crochet into the 1 stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And see how that's into the same stitch. So now we're just going to repeat that sequence all the way around. So let's count our stitches. We should have 40 stitches. 4, 0, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, 39, 40. So I can now do my slip stitch. And that is the end of row 5. So now on to row 6. We're going to chain 2. And then our pattern says 4 half double crochets with 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. So let's just do that. 1 half double crochet, 2 half double crochets, 3 half double crochets, 4 half double crochets, and then 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6 are in the same stitch. So once again, we're going to do that same pattern all the way around until we have 48 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So you'll see that once again I've forgotten to put in my stitch marker, but that's okay with me. So we now should have 48 stitches. So again, I'm just going to ignore that chain at the beginning. I've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, 39, 42, 45, 46, 47, 48. So I'm just going to slip stitch to the top of that first stitch. And that is the end of row 6. So now we've got row 7. We're going to chain 1. And then our pattern says that we're going to do 5 single crochets and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochets and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 3 single crochet, 4 single crochet, 5 single crochet, and then 2 single crochet in the last stitch. And then once again we're going to repeat that sequence all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. Okay, so I've got to the end of row 7 and I wasn't able to complete my sequence. So that makes me think that I've probably gone wrong somewhere. So I'm just going to count this row and see where I get up to. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, 39, 42, 45, 48, 51, 54, and I should have 55 and 56. Let me just see if I've gone wrong anywhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a double. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a double. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a double. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ah, I don't have a double there. So I've got a double here, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but this stitch is not a double. So I'm going to pull it out until I get to this point here. Let's just see where we're up to. So this is where our last double was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I need to do my double. Okay, so this time I was able to complete my sequence. So I should have 56 stitches. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, 39, 42, 45, 48, 51, 54, 55, 56. Excellent. So we've now got the right stitch count, and I'm going to slip stitch to the beginning. And we've now completed row 7. Okay, so now this is where our pattern starts to change. We're getting to row 8. Our row says to start with chain 3. 1, 2, 3. It then says to DC in the same stitch. So I'm going to double crochet in the same stitch. It then says to skip a stitch. So that's the next stitch here. We're going to skip that. And it says to do a double crochet, a chain, and a double crochet into the next stitch. So double crochet, chain, double crochet. So that's what that looks like, and that's a V stitch. You'll see that there's an asterisk around the DC chain DC and the skip stitch, and then it says repeat to the end. So it means to repeat those stitches in the asterisk to the end. We should end up with the same number of stitches as the last row, which is 56. So let's see how we go. We're going to skip a stitch, going to double crochet, chain, double crochet. Going to skip a stitch, double crochet, chain, double crochet. Skip a stitch, double crochet, chain, double crochet. And we're just going to repeat that all the way around. So we're now going to count our number of stitches. One thing I didn't mention at the beginning of this row is that the chain 3 in this row does count as a stitch. So when we're counting our stitches, we need to count that first 3 chains. But we only count it as one stitch because it represents a double crochet. And in this count, we're only going to count the double crochets, not the chains in between. So we're going to go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56. You can now slip stitch to the top of the chain. We've now completed row 8. So now we're on to row 9, and we're going to chain 1, 2, 3. And we're going to do our first DC 2 together. So this is where we do 2 double crochets and we merge them together. So we'll go through that slowly. And if you go back to the beginning of your pattern, there are instructions on how to do a DC2 together. Now for this particular pattern, we're going to go into the space between the 2 DCs that we did in the previous row. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to insert our hook into the middle of those 2 stitches, we're going to yarn over at the back, we're going to pull up a loop, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops. We're going to yarn over, insert the hook into the same stitch, yarn over at the back, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. We're then going to yarn over and pull through all 3. And that's our DC2 together at the beginning. Okay, so after we've completed our DC2 together, we're going to chain. Our pattern then has an asterisk, then it says DC3 together, then chain and an asterisk, and then repeat to end. So basically in the rest of our pattern, we're going to do a DC3 together into the middle of the 2 DCs. So this is what we call going into the chain space, because we did a DC, a chain and a DC, and this is the space where the chain is. So to do our DC3 together, we're going to yarn over, go into the chain space, yarn over at the back, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over into the chain space, yarn over at the back, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over into the space, yarn over at the back, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then pull through all 4 loops on your hook. So I'm just going to do that again. Yarn over, sorry, we're going to do our chain first. Yarn over into the space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. We have 2 loops on our hook. Yarn over into the space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, got 3 loops on our hook. Yarn over into the space, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, now got 4 loops on our hook, and we're going to yarn over, pull through all 4. So we're just going to repeat that pattern around one more time. Yarn over, in, pull through 2, yarn over, in, pull through 2, yarn over, in, pull through 2, and pull through all 4 loops, then chain. And we're just going to repeat that sequence around. So at the end of row 9, it says that we need to have 28 DC3 together. In row 9, we are going to be counting this chain as a stitch. So that means the DC2 together and the chain represent a DC3 together. So we're going to count 28 from this first cluster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. And then again we're going to slip stitch to the top of the chain at the beginning of the row. Oops. So if I zoom out, you can see that this is now starting to take a bit of shape. We're starting to get some curves happening, and we do want this at this stage. So we're now going to start on row 10. We're going to chain 3, and this chain 3 is going to count as a stitch. We're going to double crochet into the same stitch as the chain, and then we're going to skip a stitch. So this is where things get a bit complicated, because basically we're going to skip the DC2 together and we're going to work into the chain space. So we're going to DC, chain, and DC into the chain space. And we're going to repeat that same pattern to the end, just like in row 8. Okay, so we should have 56 DCs, and we count that beginning chain as a DC. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56. And we slip stitch to the top of the chain. And that is the end of row 10. We're starting to see some real shaping coming in. Okay, so row 11 is the same as row 9. We're going to chain 3, and this chain is counted as a stitch. We're going to do a DC2 together, then we do a chain, and DC3 together. And a chain. Then we're going to repeat the DC3 together all the way around. Okay, so we've just finished our last DC3 together, and as in row 9, because of the chain 3 at the beginning, we're effectively going to count the DC2 together and the 3 chains as a DC3 together. So row 11 says we've got 28 DC3 together, so let's count them. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 28. And we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain. Okay, and that is the end of row 11. Ah, this could be a cute little bowl too. Okay, let's get ready for row 12. Row 12 is going to be very similar to row 10. Going to chain 3, and we're going to DC into the same stitch. We're then going to skip a stitch, which means we skip that DC2 together, and we're going to work into the chain space. And we're going to do DC, chain, DC. We're going to do that all the way around. We're at the end of row 12, and we're going to count the number of DCs. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56. And I'm going to slip stitch to the top of the beginning chain. And that is the end of row 12. Okay, we're at row 13. And this is effectively the same as row 10. We're going to chain 3, which counts as a stitch. and DC2 together, working into that chain space. Then going to chain and do DC3 together, and chain. Then we're going to repeat our DC3 together all the way around. Okay, so we're at the end of row 13. We're going to count our stitches, or count our DC3 togethers. So we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 28. And we're going to slip stitch to the top of chain 3 at the beginning. Now we have finished row 13. Okay, so we're going to carry on to row 14. Going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, DC in the same stitch. We're going to skip the DC2 together, and we're going to do DC, chain, DC, and we're going to skip the next stitch and repeat this to the end. Okay, so we're at the end of row 14. We're going to count our stitches, and we're just counting doubles, and we do count the chain at the beginning. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56. And slip stitch to the chain. And we are at the end. Row 14, almost there. We've only got 3 more rows to go. Row 15, should be getting pretty used to these rows by now, because even though they're alternating, we're pretty much doing the same thing over and over again. So chain 3, DC2, together, chain, going into the next chain space, DC3 together, chain. I'll just do that DC3 together a little bit slower. Cool, we're just going to repeat that to the end, working into the chain spaces. Okay, so at the end of row 15, should have 28 DC3 togethers, and you know by now that we're counting the chain, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 28. We're going to slip stitch at the top of the chain. We've now finished row 15, so we're almost there. Got 2 more rows to go. These ones are really easy. Okay, so on to row 16. Going to chain 2, going to HDC into the first stitch. So now it says to HDC, or half double crochet, into each stitch around, and we need to end with 56 half double crochets. So that means we should be crocheting into the top of each DC3 together, and then into the chain as well. So that's at the top of the DC3 together, and we can just work around the chain. DC3 together, work around the chain. DC3 together, work around the chain. And just repeat that all the way around. So here we are at row 16, and we're back to not counting the chain as a stitch because we're just doing plain stitches around. So we're just going to count those. So we're not counting the chain. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, 39, 42, 45, 48, 51, 54, 55, and one more at the end, 56, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of the beginning stitch. Okay, last row, row 17. I'm playing yarn chicken here. I haven't got much yarn left. I think I've been crocheting a little bit looser than I usually do, so we'll see how we go. We're going to chain 3, and we're going to DC in each stitch around. So I've done the first 4 there, and I'll continue around. Ah, look at that, a 1 yarn chicken. Excellent. Okay, so we are at the end of row 17. Let's count our stitches. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, 39, 42, 45, 48, 51, 54, 55, 56. And we slip stitch to the top of the first stitch. So now that we've done that, we can fasten off, which effectively means that we can cut our yarn. So just pull it so that you've got enough to weave in later. Give it a cut, pull out the last bit of yarn. Look at that, that's how much yarn I had left. So it fits perfectly with this ball of yarn. And we're just going to turn it inside out because I think this way looks much nicer. So to finish off, we will weave in this end, and I think there's also an end here, so we'll just give that a bit of a tug to get that nice, and we'll weave that in as well. So I'll show you how to do that. We'll start with the yarn tail in the middle. Just going to give that a bit more of a tug to make sure it's nice and secure. Going to put our needle on, and I'm just going to weave in the end. So when I'm doing this, I give it a bit of a tug to see which end of the circle that the yarn came out of, and I'm just going to keep going the way that it was. Just get my needle through, just so that we can pull that nice and tight, and that's going the same way. And then I'm going to skip a couple of pieces of yarn just to kind of lock that in. Keep going the same way, and then I'm going to return back. Make sure that you've gone over at least one bit of yarn so that if for some reason the yarn comes out, it's kind of locked in as well. And then I'm just going to tug it a little bit, cut it off right at the end. That's now gone. Don't even know where that was. Then we're going to go to the one on the end. Oops. Okay. So the yarn is going yarn is going that way, so I'm just going to go under the stitch, and you'll see that that kind of looks like it's meant to be there. And then I'm just going to find some yarn to kind of go in and around, so I'm going to go down this DC, and then I quite like finding straight lines personally, because it allows me to lock in the bit that I want to. So I'm going to go through there. So when you pull it through, don't pull it through too tight, just pull it through so that it comes through enough, because if you pull it too much then it's going to all squish up, which isn't going to help. And now I'm going to come back this way, but I'm going to go over top of that first kind of stitch just to make sure that that kind of locks it in. So it's kind of a 3-step process. You go in one way, go in another way, then make sure that that last one is kind of, at least the last one, if not all of them, are kind of locked in just over the top of another stitch. So I'm pulling it tight enough that it sits however the yarn, however the project is sitting, without pulling too much that it starts squishing up. But then I do give it a little bit of an extra tug where I'm cutting it, just so that I can then pull it and it comes back into the project. So let's just have a look at that project now. And that's the finished piece. So I'd really love to see your finished pieces. If you can share that in the Facebook group, that would be really awesome. I'd really love to see them. Thanks, guys.